switch. When you go up and you're waiting for that hit, it's a feeling that you can't describe, man. It's like, it's unexplainable. People are like, dude, how do you do all that? And I'm like, I don't. it's like my fingers in the car.
There was a time when the Chevy Impala wasn't just a car, it was the car. You didn't need to say much, just the name Impala brought a flood of images. Chrome shining under the sun, deep V8 rumble echoing through American streets, and generations of proud owners. From muscle car lovers to lowrider artists, turning the key to something more than transportation. It was freedom on four wheels. It was status. It was power. And for decades, it was the crown jewel of Chevrolet's lineup. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Behind closed doors, decisions were made. Priorities shifted, and slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, GM began turning its back on its own legend. This is the shocking truth behind the Chevy Impala. How a car that defined generations was left to fade into obscurity. Not because the people stopped loving it, but because the company that built it stopped believing in it.
Honest muscle car. It has that power to it. It has that presence.
So what really happened? Why did GM walk away from one of the most iconic names in automotive history? Let's take a drive back through time and uncover the rise, the reign, and the fall of the mighty Chevy Impala. The year was 1958. Elvis was on the radio, tail fins ruled the road, and America was in love with cars. That's when Chevrolet introduced something new, something bold. A car that looked like it belonged in a dream and drove like it was built for the American future. It was called the Chevy Impala, and it stole hearts overnight. From the start, the Impala wasn't just another vehicle on the road. It was the car people wanted in their driveways.
Yeah. You still see this car out on the road. It's very popular.
It had style, sweeping curves, bold chrome, and those unmistakable triple taillights that would become its signature. It had power, an available V8 engine that growled with authority. But most of all, it had presence. You didn't just arrive in an Impala, you made an entrance. By the mid-1960s, the Impala wasn't just popular, it was a national obsession. In 1965, Chevrolet sold over 1 million Impalas, a record that still stands. That same year, the Impala SS, or Super Sport, turned the family-friendly full-size into a street-dominating muscle machine. With 327 and 396 cubic-inch V8s under the hood, it was raw American horsepower wrapped in elegance.
The 396 cubic-inch big block engine debuted for 1965, but
teenagers drooled over it, businessmen commuted in it, families trusted it. The Impala was there for dates, prom nights, weddings, and weekend road trips. It was more than a car. It was woven into the fabric of American life. It represented something rare, a car that could be fast and refined, aspirational, yet attainable. GM had created a cultural icon, a true symbol of its era. But success has a way of drawing corporate eyes, and as the decades wore on, the very traits that made the Impala great began to clash with shifting priorities inside General Motors. What followed wasn't just a decline, it was a slow, deliberate fade into the background. And that's where the real story begins. The 1970s should have been a decade of continued dominance for the Chevy Impala, but it quickly became a turning point, a moment when the car that once ruled the streets began to lose its soul.
Version of these cars were so good the police used them as police cars.
For years, the Impala had been a symbol of American power, style, and freedom. But the world was changing fast, and General Motors was slow to adapt. The first cracks appeared with government regulations. In 1973, the oil crisis hit, and suddenly, America's love affair with big, roaring V8s became a liability. Gas prices soared, and fuel-hungry giants like the Impala were suddenly under scrutiny. GM had to respond, or so they thought. Their solution? Downsize. On paper, it was logical. A lighter car meant better fuel economy, lower cost, and compliance with new laws. But in reality, it was a disaster for the car's identity. The Impala that once thundered down the highway with a growling V8 now felt muted.
I can tell you, everybody here that has a car will tell you the same thing. All car guys, they love
The power, the presence, the visceral thrill of a true muscle car, it was vanishing. By the late 1970s, the Impala had become something unrecognizable. Smaller engines replaced the legendary big blocks. Plastic parts crept in where chrome once gleamed. Suspensions were softened to meet ride regulations, leaving the car feeling numb and ordinary. Enthusiasts who once lived for the roar of a Chevy engine now shrugged and moved on. The streets that the Impala had once dominated now seemed too small for it, and yet the car itself had shrunk in spirit.
I know her dad's selling an Impala. I went to check out the 62. We talked.
Meanwhile, competitors like Ford doubled down on performance and innovation, while GM hesitated, mired in bureaucracy, compliance, and profit margins. The very company that had built an icon was now unwittingly stripping it of its heart. By the end of the decade, the Chevy Impala was no longer a symbol of freedom or power. It was a shadow of its former glory, a car that Americans still recognized, but no longer felt. And for fans, the question lingered. How could a legend be allowed to fade away so quietly? By the 1990s, the Chevy Impala was at a crossroads. After years of compromise, the car that once defined American streets had been reduced to a quiet shadow of its former self. But then, in 1994, something remarkable happened.
Old school muscle, to me, it's got to sound right, it's got to look right, it's got to go fast.
Chevrolet dared to take a bold step. They introduced the Impala SS, a rear-wheel drive V8 machine that roared with 260 horsepower. A modern muscle car with its roots firmly planted in the glory days of the 1960s. For fans, it was a fleeting glimpse of what it could have been. Raw power, precision handling, and a nod to a legend that refused to die quietly. For a brief moment, it seemed as though GM might finally embrace the Impala's true identity. Enthusiasts dreamed of a revival, imagining the SS carving its name alongside the Mustang SVT Cobra and Camaro Z28 as an American performance icon. The potential was undeniable. The stage was set, and yet GM faltered. Production was limited. Marketing was lackluster.
SS 427, they only produced 2,124 of them.
By 1996, barely 2 years after its daring return, the rear-wheel drive SS was quietly phased out. No fanfare, no grand finale, just a whisper of what could have been. The chance to rekindle the Impala's legendary status? Lost. Afterward, GM shifted the Impala's focus toward the safe and predictable, a family sedan designed for comfort, economy, and broad appeal. On paper, it made sense. Sales were steady, but something crucial had been lost. The roar of the V8 was replaced by soft, uninspiring suspension. Bold lines gave way to conservative styling. The soul of the Impala, once loud and untamed, now existed only in name.
Is to have a good running car. I drive my car to all the car shows.
It was a cautionary tale, a legendary car given a second chance, only to be tamed and subdued. And for fans who remembered its glory days, the question lingered like an echo through empty streets. How could a giant of American muscle be reduced to this? By the 2000s, the Chevy Impala had become almost unrecognizable. Once the king of the streets, it had been transformed into a fleet and commuter car, the workhorse of rental lots, police departments, and government fleets. Reliability was there, sure, but identity? Gone. The roar of a V8, the sense of arrival, the pride of ownership, all of it had faded. The Impala had become a car you drove because you had to, not because you wanted to. GM tried to recapture a spark in 2014 with the 10th generation Impala.
In 1965, Chevrolet finally retired the W motor, the fabled 409.
Sleek lines, a modern interior, hints of style. But it was like putting lipstick on a legend that had already been tamed. The world had moved on. Performance buyers were chasing SUVs, crossovers, and muscle cars that never abandoned their heritage. The Impala, once a symbol of freedom and power, was now just safe, predictable, bland. Then came the final crushing blow. In 2016, GM announced that the Impala would be discontinued. 58 years. 58 years of a car that had defined generations, that had sounded like thunder on Main Street, that had turned heads with its chrome and triple taillights. And just like that, it was gone. For a generation who had grown up with the big block V8, who had dreamed of the Impala SS, who had celebrated milestones in its cabin, it was more than disappointment. It was heartbreak.
I take this car out to relax, to clear my head. That's my time.
Some blame the rise of SUVs, and there's truth to that. But the deeper, more shocking reality? GM had the power to evolve the Impala, to honor its heritage while keeping it relevant in a changing market. Instead, they chose the safe, predictable path. By the time they pulled the plug, the legend had quietly slipped away, leaving behind a name that once commanded respect, and now only whispers of what might have been. So why does the death of the Impala matter? This wasn't just a car. It was part of the American story. It was a low-rider culture, drag strip legends, family milestones, and countless memories of first drives and summer nights. When GM killed the Impala, they didn't just retire a model. They erased a piece of American heritage. The lesson here? Even the most iconic brands can falter when corporate bureaucracy, short-term thinking, and fear of risk outweigh passion and respect for history.
This car is one of the things that I've always wanted since I was a teenager.
The Impala could have adapted, like the Mustang or the Corvette, but instead, it became a ghost of its former self. Today, Impalas are cherished by collectors, lowrider enthusiasts, and muscle car lovers. Their value is rising, not because GM made them, but because they no longer exist in the way they should. The legend lives on, but only in memory, in stories, and in the hearts of those who truly understood what the Impala was all about. The next time you see a classic Impala cruising down the street, remember this: GM didn't just build a car, they built a legend, and then they killed it. Maybe it's a cautionary tale about corporate short-sightedness, or maybe it's a reminder that true legends never truly die. They just wait for those who appreciate them. Could the Impala have survived if GM had played it differently? Or was its fate inevitable in a changing market? Some legends are worth fighting for, even if the odds are stacked against them.